Hello, this is BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall. We'll be taking a look at tomorrow morning's papers in just a moment, but first the headlines at 10:30. Hello and welcome to our look ahead at what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With me are the banking editor of The Times, Sam Coates, and writer and broadcaster Sharma Pereira. Thank you both for coming in. Let's start with those front pages then, and we'll kick off with The Independent. Its headline is "Pay Up or Watch Child Poverty Get Worse," saying advisers are telling the government to put its money where its mouth is. The Telegraph says 8,000 NHS managers earn more than £100,000, while nurses are run ragged. We'll try and look at the Express, but if we can't see it, I'll tell you what it says. It says that the summer holiday prices are to plunge, meaning British holiday makers' money will go further in Europe. The FT reports that banks are dampening the Chancellor's hopes of more credit being extended to small businesses. The Mirror says that Vicar of Dibley star Dawn French has remarried in a secret seaside ceremony. The Guardian has an attack on the short parliamentary hours worked by MPs from the body that scrutinises public spending. Well, we got through those quite quickly, didn't we? Because we couldn't see them. Let's have another go, and we'll start with those pages now. And I'm hoping we're starting with The Independent, because that's what my list says, so that's what I'm going to do. Child poverty set to get worse. This is coming from two names from the past. Alan Milburn, Labour's former Health Secretary, and Gillian Baroness Shepherd, the Conservative former Education Secretary. And they're going to miss this target, Sharma, of eradicating child poverty by 2020.
Well, they are going to miss the target. So my personal view is really that they should just change the target. Because if they're not going to hit it, this is going to be a front page story for the next 7 years, isn't it? Not going to hit target. Now, this is a new social mobility and child poverty commission, so perhaps they can find us some solutions to get us closer to that target for 2020. For me, this is a story that just is yet another iteration of the same story. It's got a new peg because it's the Social Mobility and Child Poverty Commission, but the information in this story is not new.
But the Commission is only doing what a Commission is supposed to do, isn't it? Holding the government to account?
In a sense. I mean, Shama's absolutely right. Alan Milburn said this last year. And what essentially a former Labour cabinet minister and a former Tory cabinet minister are saying is, look, you've got to plough a lot more money effectively into tax credits. £19 billion is the sum that you would probably need, a minimum of what you would probably need in order to make sure that Britain hits this target by 2020. That money isn't going to come, so you are going to miss the target. So maybe, as Sharma says, the best way of dealing with it is to think again about whether or not this is the best metric to use.
That sounds like letting people off the hook. If they're missing, you know, they've still got 7 years to try and do something, haven't they?
But a target is still pulled out of air. It's not based on anything more than your expectations at a particular point in time. If all the portents change around that aspiration and those targets and the way that we're going to get there, you've got to then rethink and reposition it.
The Independent doesn't put this on its front page, but my understanding is that Alan Milburn is a little sympathetic to maybe looking again about whether this is quite the right target to do. I mean, it's sort of implied in what he's saying, but they don't have those quotes explicitly. I think Alan Milburn would say to the government, look, there are something like 700,000 children in extreme poverty, the very worst cases. Why not focus the more limited resources that we have at the moment on those rather than try and make sure that this rather wide-ranging catch-all target that will cost nearly £20 billion to meet is chased after and just missed massively.
And there are other targets that you can be looking at within that same demographic, if not financial and social targets. You can be looking at aspiration, you can be looking at changing outcomes at school level, which of course is being done continuously. So it's not as if that's going to be a forgotten demographic, it's just that we're going to have to rethink the way that we're approaching 2020 and what we want for 2020, I think.
Let's just take a look at the main picture there, which is the runners at the start of the London Marathon, taking part in that 30-second silence in solidarity with the victims of last week's bombings in Boston. People sounding very determined when we heard them speak during and after that race about their determination to take part, no matter what misgivings they might have had following what happened last Monday.
And exactly as it should be. I mean, the people of Boston have continued, so there's absolutely no excuse for us in London to do anything other than say solidarity. We don't think it's going to happen here, as it didn't, and we continue. I thought the most interesting thing to come out of the marathon actually was Cheryl Baker, who ran it from Bucks Fizz. You probably don't remember, she used to wear puffball skirts and used to rip them off. But she was actually commenting from the marathon front line about what she wanted back from the 1980s. And what she wanted back was shoulder pads for women and white wine spritzers. Just a thought.
Well, she's welcome to them. She can have them. My gift to her.
Yes.
I thought there was also very heartening to see that they think that there was a record crowd turning out today, Sam, to cheer people on. Something like 700,000 spectators, which is amazing.
It certainly felt like that while we were trying to get to work, climbing over people on the way to East London. Yes, no, a huge turnout and lovely weather for it. The sort of perfect day to run a marathon.
Is it? I wouldn't know.
It's a well, it was a bit cold and a bit sunny, so it seemed like
Yeah.
I mean, not that I've done it, obviously.
No, I just
caught my exaggeration, but yeah.
I just wish the runners I met. Well, I just said congratulations, and that's as close as I'll ever get. Let's move on to the Telegraph. A couple of stories there. 8,000 NHS staff on 100,000 calories. 100,000
That's my daily
salaries.
intake.
It's Sunday night. Oh dear, I've not eaten enough. While nurses are run ragged, it says. I feel like we've read these kind of statistics before as well, Sam.
Yes, there's a little bit of a familiar theme here. The Telegraph have done their own survey, finding that 8,000 hospital managers and consultants were paid over £100,000. I think most people reading this story would make quite a big distinction, on the one hand, between managers and on the other hand, consultants. I'm not desperately upset if consultants at the top of their profession are on six-figure salaries who are doing complex operations and making difficult diagnoses. I'd be slightly surprised if many people were. Don't forget, a lot of GPs are on six-figure salaries.
Does it mean that